Hello, and welcome to Snide's Return, a tabletop roleplay podcast. My guest today asks challenging and thought-provoking questions of all areas of geek culture. Not confined by one particular niche, they move with style and aplomb through the multitude of multimedia, weaving words of wondrous worlds enjoyed by all. They are part of a supreme sorority, fiercely independent, and champions of those who are also independent. Keen to support the underdog, recruit and promote the outsiders, and reach out to young and old alike. It is a pleasure to welcome of all ages of Geek co-founder, journalist, and geek enthusiast Tatiana Stec. Tatiana, welcome to the show.
Okay, first of all, I gotta say that intro makes me sound so special. Thank you for that.
Well, you are special. That's why I invited you on.
I love it. That was so cool.
Well, all I've done is reword your fantastic work, which we will get onto very shortly,
Awesome.
and spun it back to you in lyrically fashioned verbiage. So, Tatiana, thank you for, as I say, thank you for joining me. But before we get into all ages of geeks and your good self and your sister and all the other fantastic things that you do, would you mind telling us how you sort of got into when you first found yourself in geek culture and tabletop role-playing games and all the sort of the broad spectrum of geekery that exists?
Sure. Based for geek culture, we grew up like obsessed with like this is basically how we started with specifically with like role playing stuff. We grew up obsessed with like Pokemon and like all of those like shows when we were younger. And then me, my sister, my cousin, me, my two sisters, and my cousin would like role play as the characters, and we would make our own stories with like the already existing characters. And then we started getting into different animes and like kind of doing like a crossover of like Pokemon and like Full Metal Alchemist and all these other like well-known shows when we were younger. And then from that, it became like our own like original characters. And we had no clue much about like D&D when we were
Hmm.
younger or like anything TTRPG related. Um, and then I think when we were about like, I'm gonna say like high school, I heard more about it through like school because they had like an anime club. And like everybody in the anime club was into like D&D and TTRPG, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Never really did anything with it until I'm gonna say like about 2 years ago. We do like reviews and reactions over on All Age Geeks YouTube channel, and a lot of people in our community were like, "Oh, you guys should get into like Critical Role and like review what like Critical Role is doing and stuff." And like we had no idea anything about Critical Role until like people in our community were like, "Guys, check out Critical Role." And then from there, we started like reviewing like Critical Role campaign 2
Hmm.
over on our YouTube and like checking out what they were doing. We didn't get far yet. We're still working on it. But yeah, like it basically started like when we were really young. We started our own character creations and stuff like that. And then based on what we were telling like our community and stuff, they're like, "Oh, you guys would totally be into like D&D and stuff." And from
Hmm.
there, we're still beginners because we just got into it. So I'm not going to say I know much of like the techniques and all that stuff that goes into D&D and TTRPG. But I definitely think role playing and D&D and all that stuff, specifically for anyone who's into writing, is an incredible tool to get to know characters and stuff like that. So for us, what really started was when we were really young. We watched Pokemon. We were like, okay, I kind of want to like make our own stories with these already made characters, and then it
Hmm.
grew from there.
That is amazing. And so, well, before I dig into some of the things you mentioned there, would you, Tatiana, mind telling us where we can find yourself, All Ages of Geek, and all the things you're associated with, please?
Sure. So all ages of geek you can find at allagesgeek.com. And then if you go on allagesgeek.com/social, it'll show all of our links there. We also have a Patreon, so if you want to support us like financially, it's patreon.com/allagesgeek. There we kind of just do reviews on shows. We also have we're working on a visual novel, which is called I Married a Monster on a Hill, which actually has all of the characters we basically grew up with when we started like getting more into like OC creation and stuff like that. But yeah, it's all allagegeek.com. You could literally find everything there at allagegeek.com/social.
All right. Well, I will make sure that those links are down in the description below. So please scroll down, follow those links, support All Ages of Geek and all their various outputs through their socials and many more that we'll touch on shortly. You mentioned sort of building from a Pokemon, something that I watched in my youth, so I know exactly where you're coming from in there, and sort of building out and going to anime club, which sort of caught my ear immediately because the anime when I was at school was kind of shunned to the
Yeah.
weird corners of the class, as it were. So when did that interest go from interest into we need to put this on a website? We need to build this into something. What was the genesis for All Ages of Geek to become a thing and not just an idea or just a discussion around a kitchen table?
Yeah, so my sister was actually homeschooled. So when she was homeschooled, like obviously, it's hard to connect with people because you're at home all the time. And from there, she started YouTube. So she started as a gaming channel. So she would play games. People would come over, and then the community that she built with the gaming channel was like, "Oh, you guys should get into like anime." So she would do like anime reviews on YouTube, and then she probably, I don't know, I can't remember when. I'm gonna say like 2018, 2019. She was like, "You should come on too." And oh God, I was so shy. I hated being on camera. It was awful when I first started. Definitely changed my life because now it's like I can't stop talking. It's You could put a camera in front of my face and I could just say anything. Um, but from there, it became we were doing like reviews and reactions and gameplays together, and then something just felt off, and we're like, like yeah, we're building something kind of like for people to hear like what we're saying, but
Hmm.
something felt off. We were like, I kind of want to make this more than just us. So, the website became allagesgeek.com, and it became like the hub for like indie creators. I mean, first it was more like geek news, and it was like, okay, but every other like platform is doing geek news. Like you have, I don't want to mention anyone's names, but you know who I'm talking about. There's so many platforms who review anime and like triple A games and all this stuff, but there was really not one platform that was dedicated to like indie game devs or like voice actors, indie animators, or anything like that, like TTRPGs. There's so many Kickstarters for all these people, but no platform was really there to like push out the news about the Kickstarters or push out the news about these projects.
Hmm.
So we kind of went from, it was like a us centered focus. All was us centered, and we are like, no, don't really want this. We kind of wanted to make it a place where it could focus more on like creators who won't necessarily get like that buzz from those huge companies, and not necessarily put the focus on them. So yeah, we kind of wanted to be that space because even a lot of like we've been noticing this recently, a lot of companies are highlighting indie creators, but they're only highlighting indie creators who have that $1 million budget. They're not
Hmm.
highlighting indie creators who might have like a $50 budget and a pencil. So we're kind of like here to like be like the voice push for those people who might not necessarily get that like dedicated press. But yeah, it kind of just started from like my sister doing her gameplay channel, and then it just spiraled and spiraled until what it was today.
And what it continues to be. So you've mentioned indie game devs and all this sort of good stuff. So who has from your many guests and your many outputs? So going to allagesofgeek.com and sort of going through some of your content, you cover TTRPGs, you mentioned anime, you mentioned video games, there's cartoons, there's movies, there's a podcast that will get the output is consistent, it's high quality, it's there to be enjoyed, and covers such a broad spectrum. Who or what out of your many interviews and entries, shall we say, onto
Mhm.
the website and your content as All Ages of Greeks has it inspired you the most or surprised you the most?
I'm gonna say like it's really like the smaller indie devs that have like these incredible stories. Like we recently just covered PAX East. I'm gonna say a few months ago,
Hmm.
and I was able to like connect with them like face to face, which is so different from doing like interviews through text or interviews through podcasts. But there's something about like being next to someone that makes it feel more real. And like so many of them had like these like incredible stories where they're just like, they started out like with no money or anything, and they started out in their basement and no one heard of them, and then they just like blew up with like the support of everyone like online and all this stuff. But it's really like touching to hear certain stories. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but I will definitely send you the link. There was one game dev that I did connect with at PAX, and he was making a game about like a corgi. And like it's a really cute, cozy game. Like you play as a corgi,
Mm.
it's really adorable. But then you go into the specifics of the actual game, and they're like donating a lot of money to like dogs that need rescue. So it's like
Oh
these
wow.
people who aren't necessarily making the money are using like their games for good. So it's really just really cool just to hear like where everyone started, because some people might start somewhere completely different as the other person, and it's just really like cool just to see like someone who started nowhere now like being able to present at like PAX East or PAX West anywhere, or just like the people who are developing the games, because you don't games whatever they're doing like indie animations, all this stuff that we do interview, like we don't necessarily just take on people who have finished projects. We'll talk to anyone, and it's really cool just to see where everyone started, what everyone like inspired them, and et cetera. Because obviously, every human being has a different story, so it's just really
Absolutely.
cool to see like how did you start this? What inspired you to make this character? Stuff like that. It's just really cool just to put it all together. But yeah, I think connecting at like PAX East was probably like one of the best things, because we actually physically got to see like the game in works and like the creator of the game and the team of devs and stuff like that. But yeah, I just think hearing everyone's individual story is like kind of what All Age Geek likes to push out, because each creator or voice actor or anything has a different story.
So you mentioned there, uh, encouraging people to reach out to get in contact. What is the best way for an indie game dev or someone within one of the many spheres that we've mentioned so far that thinks I would like my content to maybe catch the eye or be of something of interest to your subscribers and readers and followers? How would they best sort of reach out and get in contact with All Ages of Geek?
We actually have a contact page, but I we're most active on Twitter. But we do have an email. It's linked on our contact page, so I'll send that to you as well. But our most active platform is Twitter, so it's just at All Ages Geek. Twitter really it does have filters, but Instagram is the worst with filters when you don't follow someone,
Mm.
because you can never find the messages. Twitter does have that, but like I look at it all the time just because it's our most active social media. So if you are looking to get interviewed by us or just connecting, like just follow us on Twitter and DM us. I'm literally chronically on Twitter. So like I will probably answer you within like 2 to 3 hours. But honestly, Twitter is the best place. And if not Twitter, because I know not everyone is on social media,
Mm.
email. I'm always on the email, and then we can go from there.
All right. Well, I can put a link to the Twitter. You mentioned your socials on the website, but I'll make sure it's down in the description below, and the email address as well, so people can reach out directly in that respect as well. And a 2 to 3 hour response time is very respectable, I have to say.
It's
Uh,
bad. It's not
it's
good for me.
oh
It's good for everyone else.
yeah, we'll go with that. It's good for everybody, less so for you, maybe. With the, should we say, the changing of the seasons or the tide of independent game journalism, very recently, with respect to the time of recording, certain things have been swallowed up by others, and some have been closed down, and this, that, and the other. Your stance and stand as an independent is now more important than ever within the community, especially across the broad range of topics you touch on. So, what has it been like to sort of come into this geek culture community? You mentioned starting with a gaming channel and or
Hmm.
hijacking the sisters' gaming channel, depending on the narrative, and sort of bringing uh, your journalism skills on and being able to support independence and supply information to a wide audience on a multitude of topics.
Yeah. So it's like really hit or miss now with journalism, unfortunately. Specifically with the gaming industry, because there's just so much going on with like studios closing down, all this stuff happening, and like game journalism has become so like I guess I want to say like monetary and gain, instead of like focusing actually on the creation of the games.
Mm.
A lot of journalisms now, we've seen a few people have like, which obviously journalists have to make money, because like this is what we do. We have to make money too, but we will never ever put like, oh, you have to pay $5 a month to even see the content, because that kind of pushes away the point of interviewing someone. Because it's like not everyone's going to have access to that interview about like the game or the voice actor or the TTRPG, like Kickstarter, anything like that. if the journalist is putting a paywall on their work,
Hmm.
because we've seen a lot of people who are kind of doing similar to what we're doing, but they do have that paywall. So if anyone is listening to this and you want to create something like All Ages a Geek, I think the biggest thing is like you can't really necessarily have a paywall because then it defeats the purpose of being a platform for people who don't necessarily have the money or the funding.
Hmm.
Because then a lot of people aren't going to pay like $5 a month just to read an article about someone they might not necessarily know. So like I think with gaming and anything indie right now, it's like everyone's just trying to make money, even like the journalists themselves. But if you are a journalist and you are trying to make a platform, you can make stuff like Ko-fi, or I can never say it. It's either Kofi or Ko-fi,
Whatever
coffee.
you're
I
happy
don't
with.
know.
Yeah, one of
I don't
those.
KO/FI. I can never pronounce it. Whatever it's called, you can make a Patreon, something like that, where your dedicated supporters will give you that money,
Hmm.
or like obviously there's like the investor route and stuff like that, but I think that having that paywall is really kind of defeating the purpose that like all these indie press are trying to do, because again they're interviewing these smaller creators who don't have the budget, but then they're making their readers pay, who the readers probably don't have the budget to pay for someone that they don't necessarily know.
Yeah.
I think that has been one of the biggest issues we've been seeing, especially for press that is trying to push out indie voices. And like I kind of mentioned it before, a lot of like the bigger websites who are pushing out indies are really only talking about the people who have that $1 million budget, which to
Hmm.
me, yeah, you might have created the studio yourself, but you're not like it's kind of defeats the purpose as opposed to $1 million budget to a person who might have like that $50 budget.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we've seen a lot of creators who've created amazing projects with barely any money, but they're not getting the press because, again, everything I think now is all about consumerism and money and what I can make instead of what I can give back.
Absolutely. It sounds very, using the right expression, bottom line driven. It's
Yeah,
all about the ledger, less about
yeah,
the experience, and
yeah.
which, as you say, is a shame. So you create content for the website. You mentioned the I Married a Monster on a Hill. You have quizzes and so much going on
Yes,
the website. You also have a podcast, The Geekening.
yes.
So what's it like pulling together a multi-platform, multi-format journalism uh, empire? We'll just go with that for 5 minutes. Uh, and how have you found the podcast experience?
Sure. So I think for me, I like talking, so it's easy. Like I feel like anyone who does a podcast, you kind of have to like talking to people
Hmm.
unless you're a solo podcaster. Um, but for me, again, it's like I mean, I kind of do what you're doing right now. I'm so not used to being interviewed, so I'm sorry if my answers are like not great. I'm usually the one talking or asking the questions, so this is definitely a different experience for me. But I just like connecting with people. So it's easy for me because I like to talk. I like to get people to say, what inspired them to create X, Y, and Z or whatever they are working on, and have them talk about like their passions. Because I feel like in today's world, people don't really get a chance to talk about their passions anymore.
Hmm.
A lot of time, people don't want to hear it because a lot of times in people's like personal lives or online lives, a lot of people might be envious of what they're working on and they don't want to hear about what this person is passionate about, or they might think it's weird or like whatever. They don't want to hear it. So I think it's really cool to have like a platform, kind of like what you're doing too. It's like you talk to people about their passions in TTRPG. I think it's just cool to have like a podcast dedicated for people to just like have like 30 minutes or an hour to talk about what they're working on. Because I feel like in today's like very busy world, people don't get a chance to just sit down and be like, hey, this is what I'm making right now, or this is what I like to do, or I'm a voice actor because of X, Y, and Z. It's just like it's just kind of a cool spot for people to connect and actually have a minute to talk about themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the voice acting. You've talked, interviewed, podcasted with a whole raft of different people. There are, as I mentioned, a whole range of quizzes and things. Such a varied content, and because you are, with the greatest of respect, sort of apart from the TTRPG scene to a
Mhm.
certain extent, and have visibility of so many other fandoms and geek culture. What have you seen within the TTRPG community that you like? You mentioned sort of the Critical Role stuff and D&D 5e and a few other things. Um, And where within a rather niche community have you sort of seen areas where we as a community could potentially improve or adjust, maybe?
Things I like. I'm gonna start with the coolest things I've seen is like those people who make the actual dice. I don't know if you've ever seen some of them. I'm like, how do you like? That's incredible. Like some of them,
Hmm.
they're like it's so fine detailed, and like it's just really cool to see like an artist create something that is so small and they have such detail in them. Like I just love watching those videos of like the people who use like I don't know exactly. I think they use resin or something to
Hmm.
create the actual dice. And some of them are just so detailed. Another thing I love to see is 'cause, the art community is huge with TTRPG because a lot of artists create, like, character sheets and stuff. It's just really cool to see how artists make, like, concept sheets for characters that someone who is pitching the character to them. So you might just say, "Hey, like, I want my character to look like this," and then an artist will come out with, like, this brilliant looking character. It's just really cool to see, like, a bunch of creatives come together, storytellers, artists, all this stuff, and just create such, like, a beautiful community. Honestly, the TTRPG community is very supportive. Gaming community, there's a lot of toxicity in gaming community. So I'm gonna say, like honestly, and I'm not just saying this because I'm on a TTRPG podcast. Of course not. TTRPG, all the people that we've talked to in the community have been so kind, and that's very rare. I'm sure there's some drama here and there with
Hmm.
within the community itself, but all the people we've talked to, I like so kind, and it's very rare to have like a super supportive community all around. But those are definitely like my top. I'm gonna say top three. I don't know how many things I said. Top three favorite things about the community. Improvement? I don't know. I'm gonna say, I guess, just keep doing what you guys are doing. I mean, like, I can't really say because it's so like personal. I think that's what's really cool about TTRPG is like everyone's story is different,
Hmm.
because it is a more personal driven story. So I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, you guys should add more of this and this because obviously each story is different, and each part of whatever someone is working on within TTRPG is very personal. I don't know. Just keep talking about your projects. I mean, like if you're listening to this right now and you're like a DM and you want to talk about a campaign you're working on, just like reach out to us. There's so many platforms you can talk about your projects on. I just think I think TTRPG is a very positive community. And I think y'all can inspire a lot of the gaming industry and the anime industry because I'm telling you, there are some things that we see in Twitter and all the other social platforms within the gaming and anime sphere that is so toxic. So it's really refreshing to go within a community who's more like supportive of each other as opposed to like against each other.
Well, I hope that we can continue to impress you
Yes.
in the ways we have been so far. And you're right. There's always drama somewhere.
Yeah, of course.
It's just life. Uh,
Humans.
yeah, pretty mostly. Uh, so you mentioned their anime, and not being an aficionado myself, but enjoy the occasional.
Yeah.
What have been your sort of favorite? So where are we? We're sort of midsummer 2024. So what have been? Say, pick out three of your favorite over the last
God.
12 months, 24 months, 5 years, whenever.
Okay. Oh god, this is hard. Okay, number one favorite anime is Kids on the Slope. It is it's not it's one of those gems a lot of people haven't heard of that story. It's a very beautiful story. If you like music, if you like a touching story, it's like a 12 I think it's 12 episodes. I recommend the dub because the dub is really good for that anime, but if you're like a sub person, it's also really good. That is my top favorite anime of all times. It's 12 episodes. The manga continues, but you don't really have to necessarily read the manga to get the point of what they're trying to push with the story. It is a gem of an anime, so I guess my next one, I'm gonna go with a more popular one, Bleach. I know a lot of people hate Bleach, but like I love Bleach. Um, I grew up on Bleach. Bleach was one of my first animes. So it's like I'm more biased for it because it was like, okay, this kind of introduced me to anime. I know it has some
Hmm.
flaws, but it is a really good story. And then third one, I don't know. I have so many animes that I watched. Um, I'm just gonna say oh god, I guess Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood because Fullmetal Alchemist not Brotherhood is not good. They go really weird with the story. But Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood also grew up on that, so kind of biased for the story. But top tier, definitely Kids on the Slope. It is a gem of an anime, but anyone watching this, watch that show. It's so good.
All right, I have made a note of that because I will
Awesome.
I will check that out. So that's what's been inspiring you and keeping you entertained. So I won't break it down into each subgenre. Making name top three video games and stuff like that. If you feel free to share them, but I won't subject you to like a bullet
Okay.
pointed. However, I am interested to know what's coming next for All Ages of Geek. I've said several times so far in this podcast, you have so much fantastic content on your website. You're apparently almost always on Twitter and therefore readily available
Chronically.
for interaction, uh, and sort of have a good following and a fantastic output, multi-platform, multimedia. So, what is coming next for All Ages of Geek?
Sure. I'll actually give you something that I haven't released publicly, but I'll give this to you. We're actually working on two really cool things for independent creators. Now, we're not fully funded ourselves, but our biggest thing is we like to give back to the community as much as we can. So we're actually working on something similar to like a grant program where have every year we'll give to someone who is looking for funding for their project. I don't know about the amount yet. We haven't really discussed much about it, but we are working on a grant program for indie creators. So if you are like an indie dev or indie animator, indie comic creator, anything, we're going to have something coming out soon where we can give you like just like a little bit amount of money that can help you with your project. Because I know necessarily not everyone wants to go onto Kickstarter and may not know much about how funding actually happens. So
Hmm.
if we could be like that push for you to like have a little bit of a financial for your projects, like that's something we are working on. And then we're also working on something really cool. Again, I haven't talked about this publicly, so if anyone's listening to this, hey, you're getting a little exclusive here. We're gonna make something called like I don't know the name yet because again, it's all in the works. But it's kind of gonna be like a game like an indie game contest where we'll have like a group of judges and you'll submit your game and then at the end of the I guess the judging we'll give money to that creator who wins because we've seen recently I'm not going to call out the name of the company or event, but there was an event recently that charges indie game devs like $50,000 just to get their game trailer seen. So like we
Wow.
kind of want to make it free for everyone to enter. You just like enter with a trailer. We have a group of judges look at it, and then we can give you something for winning. I don't know the name yet, again, so like I apologize for my lack of promotional skills right now. Um,
That's fine.
but yeah, that is something we are working on, and then we are also working on something where we're going to have maybe I guess like once or twice a month where we feature game dev trailers on our YouTube channel because our YouTube channel does have a big subscribing. It's I think it's our biggest, yeah, it's our biggest platform right now. So we want to like give back to people where like their trailers can be seen, so they don't have to go to a company that's going to charge them $50,000 just to have their trailer seen. So those are some things that are coming up in the works, and like I mentioned it before, but we're working on our visual novel. I Married a Monster on a Hill. That is also in development. We're in 2024, so I think that's what we're 2024 is right now. We're working on writing the scenarios for our demos in 2025, and then hopefully 2026 we'll have the full pack one of the game released. So those are some things that we're working on right now. But yeah, there's your little
Wow.
exclusive for you.
Oh, thank you very much. And they all in separately, all technically four things. You mentioned they sound exciting and wonderful in their own right. The grant program sort of it should be a good push for those that need that assistance. The contest is always fun to sort of see how things balance out and allows, I guess, the game developers to understand appeal of certain things and allow them
Hmm.
to tweak in development. Trailers, I'm a big fan of promos. I like to do it for other podcasts, get their sort of promos in and get them out through my platform. I'm not the biggest
Hmm.
platform in the world, but if I can support other people within our community and you're doing the
Yes,
same for the wider sort of indie game dev community, then I can only support your support for those that need support. There we go. There's a
supporting.
sentence.
Woo!
So hey. And the game yourselves are working on sounds intriguing to say the very least. Uh, so you mentioned game devs and support and all those sorts of good things. So people can find you and know how to get in contact should, as and when these things come online, as it were, or go through the full process to be put into place. Where can they find you and all the things you're associated with, please?
Just allagesgeek.com. We're literally All Ages of Geek everywhere except for TikTok. That is All Ages Geek TV. I don't really use it much. I mean, we're gonna start using TikTok again because apparently it's great for marketing purposes. But it's just All Ages Geek TV on TikTok. Everything else is All Ages Geek on social media. Then we have allagesgeek.com. And then Patreon is patreon.com/allagesgeek. But you could literally find everything if you just type in allagesgeek.com/social, and that just links you to all of our fun stuff that we're working on.
All right. Well, as I said earlier, I will make sure those links are down in the description below. So please scroll down, follow those links, support all ages of geeks, support independent game devs of multi or independent developers and creators of many different systems and genres and media. Please do.
Do it. Do it.
So, we have discussed quite a lot in
Yes.
a relatively short space of time, but that doesn't mean we have discussed everything. So, at this
Okay.
point in time, Tatiana, is there anything that we haven't touched on yet that you would like to bring up now?
Huh. I mean, I guess just like if you are someone who's working on like I don't know, anything D&D related and you want to talk to someone or have like a written interview or anything, like we're not just open for people who are just, doing dev work or voice actors. Like we've talked to a few people who are doing like their own campaigns. And if you just want a shot to talk about like your campaign or anything that you are working on like TTRPG related, like please reach out. Like we are open to talking to pretty much anyone. As long as you have like a story to tell and like something positive. To talk about. Like we are down to just talk on like because I know some people don't like talking, on podcasts or anything. If you
Hmm.
want to talk through text, we're always open for that. But yeah, I mean, our biggest thing is we want to support as many folks as we can. So if you know someone who is a creative who doesn't really know much about marketing, our website has pretty much been alive for like I think like 7 years now. So our SEO is pretty nice. So your name will come up if you get interviewed by us and you're looking for press and you type in your name, it will probably come up on Google because we've been pretty much long standing. So it is good free press. So yeah, if you have any creative friends who are looking to push out their works, TTRPG related or anything related, again, you can just find us at allagegeek.com because we are pretty much open to chatting with anyone. And we are indie creators ourselves. So if you want to check out our work, we have, like I mentioned before, our visual novel. It's also a comic and it's going to be an animation later on. That is something that did come from our like role play. So these characters have pretty much been with us for like, I'm going to say like 20 plus years now. Maybe not. I'm going to say like 15 years now. I don't want to age myself too much. They've been with us for a long time, so our story is very, very personal driven for the characters themselves. Not really our story, but we know the characters like they are friends. So if you're into like slice of life, marriage, marriage issues, like random scenarios, that's basically what our story is about. It's not huge lore based, but if you do like cute romantic stuff, more about like daily life struggles in like a small town. We always say it's like the Gilmore Girl vibes. If you know Gilmore Girls, you know kind of the vibe we're going for.
Hmm.
If you're into that kind of stuff based off of someone's role play when they were younger, turned into a story, that's pretty much what we're working on with the I Married a Monster on a Hill stuff. But yeah, again, if you are just looking for someone to support you, I think we're a pretty cool community. We're pretty nice. I think I'm nice. I don't know. Some
I
people
would say
told me
you
I've
are.
been nice. My sister's nice. We're all cool here. So if you want to come on and just chat with us, like we're pretty open to doing whatever. Because our biggest thing at All Ages Geek is just giving back to folks who might not necessarily get that press or get the notice, just because everything has become very money driven.
Hmm.
And it's pretty sad to see, but we're trying to be that platform that can kind of push out folks who just want to talk about what they're working on and have like a time just to sit down and think about, oh, what really did inspire me to create this, or how did I get to this campaign, or how whatever, how did I create this character in this D&D campaign, anything that you guys are working on. We are so down to chat with you, even if it's just through text. But yeah, that's basically That's it. That's basically us.
All right. Well, I personally would love to get you back on the show. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you,
Thank
Tatiana.
you.
I'd love to get you back on in the future if and when some of the things you mentioned sort of are further in development, or you want to chat more about TTRPGs, or it's been such a fun conversation that I'd
Thank
love to
you.
get you back on in the future.
I would love to. I don't really talk much in interviews because I usually do the interviews, so it's definitely a different experience. So thank you again for like having us on. It's really cool because usually we're the people reaching out, so it's
Mm.
kind of cool to have someone be like, "Hey, you want to talk about yourself?" Like, sure, why not? So thank you again.
Well, I think you deserve the recognition that not just I, but other people clearly have noticed and support. So yeah, no, it'd be wonderful.
Thank you.
We will get that set up outside of this
Yeah, of
particular
course, of
interview.
course.
Yeah, no, it'd be fantastic to get you back in the future. It's been fantastic to have you on. I will make sure the links are down in the description below. So, as I've said a couple of times now, please scroll down, follow those links, support all ages of geeks, support independent game developers, designers, just support the indie sphere,
Space. There you go.
space, community, whether it be for TTRPGs or games or things like that. Everybody wants to put their vision out, and we here at Snyder's Return and are aligned with all ages of geek that we want to support those indie developers as well. So, thank you for your time, Tatiana.
Yeah, thank you.
We will definitely speak again soon.
Yes, please. I would love to.
All right. Thank you so much for joining me today.
You're welcome.
Thank you for listening. If you'd like to learn more about the show, then go to www.snydersreturn.squarespace.com. Alternatively, you can find us over on Twitter @ReturnSnyder. We have a Linktree link in the description of this episode. And if you want to support us, come and join us over on Patreon. And we also have a Discord server. Please leave us a review because we'd love to learn how to improve the channel and provide better content out for those who are listening. Until we speak again, thank you.